Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to this midweek review with Mr. John. I am Mr. John, and last week we were talking about this guy that was kind of put in the position of being the king of all of God's people because the people thought that they had to have a human king. Now, we talked a little bit about they had a king in God, right? God was leading the people, he was taking care of the people. But what the Israelites saw was every other nation had a leader, had a king, and they thought that they had to have a king. And so Samuel, who told them, listen, you don't want a king right now, it's not time. And God was saying, it's not time. But I think God and Samuel relented to give the people what they wanted, but it was also a learning lesson because we find out Saul, he starts out as this really good ruler, follows God's laws, but as time goes by, Saul becomes less about God and more about Saul. So Saul is ruling the nation and basically doing things that really benefit him. Sometimes it benefited the people, sometimes it didn't. And one thing about Saul that we know is in the Bible, during the time of Joseph, Jacob gives down, he kind of does a prayer for all his 12 sons. And we know that he sits there and proclaims that the line of Judah, the line that is going to take us to God and glory and be the person that is the king of the nations will come through the house of Judah. And so Saul was not from the house of Judah. He was actually from the house, the littlest house, the tiniest house, the house of Benjamin. And so he was not the prophesied, the one that was foretold by Jacob that was going to take over the nation and lead the nation and then end up being the one who leads us to eternity from the house of Judah. But there was a guy named Jesse, and he was a great man, and he followed God closely. And Samuel knew that he needed to go to Jesse, and he knew that the line was going to go through Jesse. The king was going to come through the line of Jesse. And so what Samuel does, he calls Jesse up and says, hey, I have a feeling that the king that's going to rule and take this nation and make Israel a great nation is through your line. But I kind of need to meet your sons. So Jesse, proud father, he's got 7 boys. And the first boy was named Eliab. And he comes in, and Eliab is like a leader among leaders. He's big, he's strong, he knows how to lead. And he meets Samuel, and they probably get into a little conversation. And Samuel says, basically, this is not the guy. And so Jesse, do you have another son? Remember, we know he's got 7 sons. And so he sends in number 2, which is really unusual that Samuel didn't take Eliab, because usually it is the firstborn that is like the golden child, right? He's the one that gets all the anointing, all the stuff that comes about things gets left to the firstborn. And so, and Eliab he checked almost all the boxes that would make him a great king. But Samuel said he doesn't check one box. Excuse me. He doesn't check one box. So he goes to the second son. Jesse brings in the second son, and it's Abinadab. And he comes in, same thing goes on, and there's something, he doesn't check one of the boxes. Then it's Shemiah, the third. He doesn't check the last box. Nathaniel doesn't check the last box. Radi doesn't check the last box. And Ozem, the 6th son, comes in, and he does the same thing. It's kind of like a job interview, I guess, with Samuel. And Ozem checks a lot of boxes, but he doesn't check this last box. And so Jesse's standing there, no more kids standing around. Remember, 7, we've interviewed 6. Well, do you have another son, Jesse? Yeah, we've got another one. He's quite young, and he's actually working in the fields right now. He's a lowly shepherd boy. He's a shepherd. He goes, let me see him. And so Jesse goes out and he gets the youngest son and he brings him before Samuel and he introduces him. This is my youngest son, David. And so Samuel, the second he sees David, I don't even know if there's an interview process with him. David checks all the boxes. And immediately Samuel declares David will become the next king and actually anoints him in this moment. He pours oil on his head, decreeing that he is going to be king. Actually, this anointing usually meant that they become king. And so we're going to see this kind of back and forth between Saul and David, because Saul is still alive, right? Saul is still the king. And remember, he's thinking about himself. And now David is declared to be the next king already. Not one of Saul's heirs, that his kids that could become king. David is going to be the king. And this does not make Saul happy. And we will see a lot of tension in the next few weeks of how this portrays. But one thing we find out about David is a saying we hear a lot, that David is a man after God's own heart. Now we know down the line that David has a lot of issues and David does a lot of stuff that is wrong. But David does put God first. And it kind of shows us that, yes, we're sinners. We mess up. But if we put God first, there's always room for forgiveness. But we're going to see a lot of tension in the next week between Saul and David, and we're going to meet a few more characters. Like next week, we're going to meet a dude that's really tall. So, guys, have a great week. I hope you had a great 4th. I hope you kept it all safe. But it's time to get back to work, right? It's time to get back at it, and we're going to go hard this month with David, a man after God's own heart. Hey, new verse. Hope you're learning them. Attach them to your heart, keep them forever, and be able to witness to others about who our great God is. Have a great week. Have a great month. Have a great day. We'll see you later. Love you all. Bye. Sing to the Lord with grateful praise. Make music to our God on the harp. Psalm 147:7.